Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this piece of jewelry here. And this can be a pendant. It could be a reversible pendant that you can wear either way because there's a bail on each side of it. It can also be a bracelet if you just attach a chain to each side of it. This can be a bracelet. And this can also be a bar necklace by attaching a chain. It'll just hang like this. And of course, with any sort of pendant, you can always make two and attach an earring hook, and it would be earrings as well. So this can literally be anything, really versatile little piece of jewelry here. So if you want to see how I made this, just keep watching. For my base wires, I'm using some 21 gauge wire because the stones I'm working with are very small. If you want to size this up to bigger stones, and you can use 20 gauge wire. So you need 6 pieces. It's square copper wire. I buy my wire from www.riogrande.com, and it is 7 inches long. The other wire I'm going to be using is a 24 gauge half round wire. This is also dead soft square copper, and I know in a lot of my past videos I've used 22. 24 is just a tiny bit thinner, and it actually doesn't make a difference whether if you have 22, just use that. So the first thing that you want to do, this is kind of optional, but it makes things a lot easier. If you have a little scrap piece of half round wire, or if you don't, just use the actual wire off the spool, but you want to connect these wires in groups of 3. So you want to, I'll zoom in a second to show you, but you just want to grab a little piece of the half round wire and lay your square wires just next to each other. Line them all up nicely because they're square. The flat sides kind of stack together. So do that and grab a little bit of half round wire, and we're gonna remove this wire. This is just a temporary thing, but it just makes it a lot easier if you have it connected like this in groups of 3. Here's what that looks like up close. Basically what we're going to be doing is, instead of the normal frame that goes around the stone and then the wires come out the top, we're going to be making a frame that has wires on both sides of it. So this middle part is going to go around the stone. So what you want to do is have these little groups of wires here. Move this down to the middle, and then put it so when you hold these, there's like the wider part where you can see all 3 wires, and then there's the thinner edge when you see just the 1 wire. So have the thinner edge of this face you and line them up. So it's basically 3 wires on top of 3 wires, and having them connected will make this easier so they don't slide around. So ultimately how this is going to go is your stone is going to be here in the center, and I'm using a pretty small stone. I'll measure it for you in a little bit here, but it's really small and it's just going to take up like this much space. So I want this frame to have a connection right above and right below the stone, so just kind of like where I'm holding it here. So you have to figure out, based on your stone, kind of roughly where to do it. So I'm taking my half round wire and I am giving it just a few wraps because I want this to stay together, but this is connected to the spool. So if I wrap around and around, it's just going to start getting twisted here. But I can't quite twist this yet because if I stop pinching it closed, they're all just going to kind of fall apart. So I'm going to use the tail end here of my wire, and I'm just going to wrap a few times. All right, so now that we have this connection, Mine is about 4 wraps. Now that it's kind of all staying together nicely, you can press on it with your pliers, and let me show you what that looks like. So it looks like this. They're all lined up together, all 6 wires. So we are going to continue this way. We're going to make the bail and everything with this wire that's still connected to the spool. So what you want to do is you want to, like, if this is facing you and this is your front, then this will be the back. So you want to take the 2 backmost wires, so these 2 wires on the back here, you want to kind of push them back and then push these other wires just like a little bit forward like this. So just open that up, and then with the wire that's connected to your spool, so we're gonna guide the wire with one hand and turn the piece with the other hand as we guide the wire into place. Otherwise it's going to get twisted if it's still connected to your spool like mine is. So just guide it and twist the piece around to get the wire to wrap. And this is going to be essentially our bail. We're going to have 2 bails, one on each side. And each side is going to be very, very similar. It's supposed to be symmetrical, so the way that I'm doing this, I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So what you want to do is go up a ways, maybe to like right here, so that your bail is long enough to bend. It also depends on how long you want your bail to be. You can make it a little longer, a little shorter. I'm just going to do this off camera because it's just me twisting it over and over and over again. So once it's long enough, like this is long enough for me, like if you can imagine this being bent into like a little bail, that's long enough. So I'm going to trim it so that the little wire end ends up on the back. So if these are the backmost wires, then this here is the back, and the little wire end, if you pinch it down, is here on this side. And then I'm just gonna press down this whole part here, just squishing it all down, just like that. Now we're gonna slightly separate these wires here. You can move this down if it's in your way. We just have to finish off this wire here. If you just trim it off right now, it's gonna stick up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap it around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it through the middle here, essentially wrapping it around these 3 wires here. Like that. See that wrap forming? And now if you just bring it up the back and wrap it around these 3 wires by just bringing it to the back, you can see the 2 little wraps that got formed there. And here on the back, we're just gonna pull on that and then just trim it really short. So now it's gonna be less likely to unravel because of the way that we kind of wrapped it around each side here. So here's what that looks like from the front and from the back. So this is my main stone. It's a little white silky moonstone, and it's a little more than 1/2 inch. So let's measure it in millimeters here. So in millimeters, it's about 17 millimeters. And it's just a little oval stone. So what you want to do is you want to hold your frame that you started to create. You want to kind of put the stone in here. If these are in your way, you can kind of slide them down. So you want to put the stone in there, but you do want there to be a little bit of a gap above the stone. Like you don't want to just like wedge it in there as high as you can, so there's essentially like no space up top. You want that little triangular kind of, I don't know, hole up there, gap up above the stone. So once you kind of put your stone in there, this is tricky because you're trying to hold the stone and all the wires. So if you do it on a flat surface, that might be easier. And then you're bringing the other wires together here on the other side, and you want it to be kind of symmetrical like this. So you have the little triangular gap that's roughly the same size on each side of your stone, and I'm just putting a little bend here so that it comes together like this. So it's up to you whether you like, mine are holding pretty good. I don't even need these anymore, but if you do want to use them, you can just slide them back here where the stone was to hold your wires together for you, and then you are going to have basically the same thing where you have 3 stacked on top of the other 3, and we're going to do the same kind of connection that we just did on that other side with the bail. So we're going to grab our wire, going to take the little wire end of your wire and just give it a few wraps just to lock these wires in place the way that they're kind of all stacked together nicely. Let's slide that down. And then how many wraps did we do here? Maybe one more. It doesn't have to be like super identical because it won't be noticeable, but I'll just do one more. And then taking the 2 backmost wires, so just make sure it's the same as here. So if this is our back, then this will be our back here. So just bending these a little forward and these a little backwards so that we can access them easily, and then just turning as we wrap. So guiding with one hand, turning with the other, and just keep going until it's roughly the same as this one down there. All right, so once it's looking similar, I'm just gonna trim. I'm just gonna press down on that little wire end, and I'm just gonna press down on just this whole entire bail here. So you can unravel these little wires that are holding our little groups of wires together. Can just unravel and remove those. Don't need them anymore. I'll just I'll get this one off camera. You get the point. So now we're just gonna finish off this little wire end. We're gonna do it the same way that we did over here. So we're putting it through the middle. That's essentially gonna make a wrap around these 3 wires here. Let me adjust, mine's just a little twisted looking. There we go. So if I just grab and pull on that, you can see it coming through the middle, and then it's going to go here on the back. I'm pulling on that a little bit, and then just going through the middle again onto the back, and then here on the back. We're just going to pull on this, and we're just going to trim that off as short as you can. If there is a little wire end, just kind of press on it to get rid of it. And so here we have those 2 little wraps, as you can see, on the front, and here is the back, and it is the same thing as our other side. So we're going to put our stone in. This opening may have gotten, smaller as you made the bails because it can accidentally get squished, but it's fine because it just easily opens back up, and you can wedge your stone in there, get it nice and centered. It's kind of tricky to lock it in as of this moment because we still haven't done the other bits here. So remember, the front is the one without the bail. I know in a lot of my designs the bail's in the front, but in this one it's in the back. So what we're gonna do is grab the backmost wire and just kind of bend it a little bit onto the stone. Just to trap it in the back there, and it became kind of visible here, as you can see, but we can fix that later. And then this frontmost one, I'm actually not gonna put like a bend in it as of this moment. I'm just gonna push it onto the stone, but I'm not gonna put an actual like bend. So hopefully this will hold just by being on the stone. And then I just don't want to put a bend in it right now until I did the bails. All right, so for now this will hold. We'll fix it up later. So now it's time to do our other tiny stones. So my other tiny stones, let me measure them, are really small. I don't know if I'm even gonna be able to do this. All right. So it is like 7 or 8 millimeters. I think it's 8 millimeters. Here's what it looks like. It's a tiny peach moonstone, and I have 2 of them. Now it's up to you whether you want to make this all symmetrical with like the same stone on each side, or if you want to do different ones. Totally will work with different ones too. So I'm taking the frontmost 2 wires. And, oh, actually, you know what? I think this part will be easier for you guys without the stone. So since we didn't really lock it in that well, it just pops out the front really easily. Yeah, I forgot that we have to work these wires through the center. So if the stone is in there, it'll be a lot easier to do. So the frontmost 2 wires, working them through the center towards the back. And our tiny stone, this portion's kind of tricky. The trickiest part is holding it, the actual tiny stone, in place. So the tiny stone goes here. These wires continue to kind of go to the back there. Try to like separate them a little bit. And then we're going to use our pliers because, as you can see, this is not right up against the stone, the wire. So as you're trying to hold your stone in place, you have to push down on the wire to get it to be up against the stone. Like this, and now if we check, it is up against the stone. So now it's kind of staying in place, but not too much. It could still pop out the side. So we're gonna pull on these 2 wires here, bend them. Oop. The stone is moving a little bit. Bend them this way, and just kind of press on them to try and get them wrapped all the way around. Let me zoom in. So there's my stone, and there's these 2 wires. So it's going on the edge of the stone, and then we put them in the frame. Then it's coming out the back here. And now what you want to do is to trim these off, but leave yourself a little end, because we're gonna tuck them in. Now the stone it's kind of held in, but you could push it out the sides right now. So I'm gonna take this and point it down and just tuck that wire end in there. And same thing here on this side. There we go. So in order for our stone to be secure, we are going to use these wires to trap the edges of it, because right now it can't pop out the front, but it can pop out the edges there. And so another thing that I want to do is I just want to open up this little window by putting like a little bend in it so you can see the stone better, but don't do too much because you don't want the stone to pop out the front. Like, you still want it to be a pretty small little window so you can see the stone better this way, but it still can't come out. So now with the side wires, you want to just kind of put one on each side and take one at a time and kind of just push it down like this so it's right on the edge of your stone there. And then same thing on this other side. We're gonna get the wire and we're gonna use our pliers to kind of just place it right on the edge of the stone. So now we have wires to hold the stone edges. We're gonna press down on the wires and we're gonna kind of do a little crisscross with them like this. So we are going to secure and lock these wires in place, which will trap the stone from the both sides. But as of right now, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that once we put our stone in the middle. So if your stone doesn't stay securely, you can hold it with a little piece of tape, or you can just let it fall out and pop it back in when we're ready to secure everything. Mine seems to be staying okay right now, because even if it wobbles, it would like still hit these two wires, even though they're not like super trapping it tight yet. So now we want to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to take the two frontmost wires and we're going to put them through this gap in the middle here to the back. And then I have like an identical little tiny peach moonstone. So I'm just going to put that in there. All right, so once you have it there, we're gonna pull on these wires. This is the same exact thing. We're gonna do the same exact thing. Push these wires and kind of upwards to hold the stone. Now the stone has a gap above the stone because the wires are not all the way down on it. So we're just gonna get in here with our pliers and push them actually down onto the stone. Now this can leave little marks in the wire, so if you want to use a little cloth to protect it, it's just getting difficult because it's hard enough just to hold it, but then also to have like a cloth there. So here's what that looks like. Here's a little window. I'm just going to push these wires up. And around. And squish that. So now our stone is a tiny bit more secure, but it can still pop out. So we're just gonna trim the wires and tuck away those wire ends. So tucking the wire ends into the middle, squishing that down. Like that. And now we just want to adjust this window a little bit. See the difference now that we have two. See how well you can see the stone here versus here. So just putting a little bend to open up that window, but again, just be really careful that you don't do it too much because you don't want the stone popping out through it. Here's what that looks like, and now we're just gonna take these side wires using our pliers to get them onto the edge of the stone. All right, so the stone kind of wants to pop out. There we go. And on the other side. So now we're just gonna pop our stone back in there. I might have to open up the frame. Mine got kind of squished there, so popping the stone in. And now we're just gonna push that wire back onto the stone, the one that we originally kind of had to try and trap it in there. So not putting any bends into them, but just kind of pushing it onto the stone. That. So now it's time to get rid of all these extra wires and secure the wires that are going around the edges of the stone. So we're going to take our, whichever one you want to start with, basically all of them we're just going to tuck to the back, and then we're also just going to trim and tuck away the little wire end. So just to the back. And here in the back, we're just gonna trim all of those and leave ourselves a little wire end to tuck that in. And now we're just grabbing those wire ends, tucking them in, and just kind of pressing them down. If you'll notice, like this is being nitpicky and you don't have to do this, but if you'll notice my little wire end, if I squish it, it kind of forms this loop, and the loop kind of goes around these two wires. So that helps keep this wire on the stone, versus if my loop went around all three, it would grab this wire and kind of yank it back there. So I'm trying not to do that because I'm trying to keep that on the stone to lock it in. It'll still work if you don't do that, but if it just works out that way, I think that helps. So the next one, I'm trying to hold it in a way that you can see the way the little end is just kind of coming around there. So now that side is done. Now we're just gonna do the other side. And the last one. Squish that in there. So now from the back, if you just push onto your stone to make sure it doesn't pop out easily. If you feel like it is gonna pop out, just push this frontmost wire on each side. Push it more onto the stone, and eventually it should feel pretty secure in there. So here's what it will look like so far, and now we just have to finish off the bail. So for the bail, we're going to bring it forward and we're going to bend it back. You can use something to bend it around. Before you bend it all the way back, go ahead and open up these two things and place them in such a way that they're going to go through. If we look here on the front, they're going to go through each of these little kind of windows here. So see where it's coming right there? So that's one of them. And then the other one is coming through right here. Okay, so now you can just press that bail all the way down like this. And now you can grab this wire and you want to bring it to the back and basically just have it right underneath this other wrap that we have up here. And same thing with this one, and all we're going to do is just trim and tuck away the wire ends there. So we're just connecting our bail, so I'm just tucking that in there and just squishing it down, just pressing down on that little wire end. And I'm doing that here as well, and now our bail is completely locked and connected. Here's what it looks like from the front. You can just kind of adjust it a little bit if it got crooked. And now we're just going to do the other bail on the other side. So again, just these two wires from the bail, just separate them out and have one going through one gap and the other one going through the other. So just pull those through, pressing down on our bail there. Taking these wires and bringing them to the back. And then we're just going to trim them. And we're going to tuck them in there. And press down. Like that. So now our other bail is connected as well. You can kind of adjust it here, making sure everything is straight. And here's what that looks like. So you can attach a chain to each of these ends, and this will be like a bar necklace kind of hanging across this way. So I think that would be really beautiful. You can wear it as a pendant this way, just like a reversible pendant that could be worn either way, or of course you can attach a chain to it and it'll be a bracelet as well. So lots of flexibility. You can make two of these and attach a little earring hook, and it could be earrings as well. So literally this can be anything, any piece of jewelry that you want. This can be. So that's it. That is what it looks like. And here's the back again. So just, sorry, one more quick thing on the back. If you want to just push those wires a little more onto the stone like that, that'll get, now it's really trapped in there. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.